Welcome, Divine Hearts, and thank you so much for joining us. And welcome also to the first conversation that we are having in 2023. And we have a most wonderful guest joining us again. She is Julie Dhara Roberts, and Julie is a Celestial Shaman. She is a gatekeeper. She's a Gridkeeper. Indeed, she communicates with her celestial realms, with the stars and the movements of the planets, and she sheds light on these really interesting alignments and the movements and connections within the stars, within the celestial realm, and she shares that light intelligence with us through her sharings and through her videos and everything that she shares on her website and social media. So thank you so much, Julie, for being here with us and for sharing your wonderful celestial field with us today.
Sweet. Thanks for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
Let's start then with, because we're well on the way now into the energies of 2023, how they are unfolding for you and what you're starting to feel and see.
Yeah, it's been it feels like it's the beginning of January went by like, yet it also seems like it was a million years long, the month. It's been in the beginning of January. I feel like there's been different vignettes of the year already. It's very packed. But I had the new year started with some grid working journeys for me to a city that I live near, and then to a place that I've seen on the grids that needed a little bit of like repairing or shoring up. That place on the grids that's been talking to me for a few years. But then I got this like, you gotta go. So I went and did some things, and some things happened, and it was a cool time during the magnetic flux and the solar activity around the early digits, like January 9th, 10th, 11th. And then after that, I've just been in you and I were talking about this, like cocoon of integration. Like then January got really quiet for me and still and very integrative. And I feel like slowly now I'm coming up into that ability to talk and share and interact again. It was very cocoony. But now as February flows in, it seems like the next level of light encodement and work is here and ready. As you asked me that, I heard, which it was interesting, like the juxtaposition between the solar new year, or the like January 1st date, and then the lunar new year. It was almost like there was like a pausing between those two, like integrating. Like the year didn't start until the lunar new year kicked in. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does. It does.
That's as I was talking it out. That's why it's so cool to have these conversations, because this, when you say things out loud, that's what I learn as much from talking to you as I guess come through my mouth. It's like, oh, that's right. But yeah, that like, so now I feel like now we're into this, like right now it feels like we're building all the layers of intricacy. It feels like the spring equinox is going to be a really big marker point for the energies. So those of us that do grid keeping and gatekeeping and such are laying all the groundwork for the equinox now. Do you feel that way too? Like
I do. It's so interesting. It was, and I can really feel what you're saying about how you were feeling in January. It's been very much like that. Trying to stop myself from that need to, I should do this, I should do that, and just pull back and just allow for that time to be calm and quiet, really, and to move. So it was really interesting how this conversation came together, because we were hoping to come together just a little bit sooner, but it was pushed further just a little bit again, just to give more time, because it's been that, as you're saying, this integrating period and this quiet time to prepare, as if there might well be an acceleration coming later, the energies that we need possibly.
Even in a little, like normally something that's in my task realm or something I've often done at the end of the year as the calendar year flips is to look ahead at the astronomical alignments and like see and I kept getting, in January, I was like, every time I tried to do it, it was like higher self was like, nope, like, okay. It was like that, like the roles that we're all used to. I was like, you gotta, this is not, it's like, it's not, say better.
Yeah.
It's like, let's reset everything and do everything new. Like, is that really how you're going to spend your time? Like even little things like to map out the whole year takes such an amount of hours, hours and days and months, of time for me to do that. It's like, no, that's not what your energy is supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be doing this. So I was like, I can only look in little piecemeal, or I can look at things, like I can look at it and I can feel it, but there's no way it's going to come together and to make a share, to share with other people. like it's just, you have to be in it, rather than, but as someone who's used to, producing things to share with other people.
Yes.
Like, it's been like a hold button on that. That's
how do you feel about it? Do you feel it aligns here to move into speaking about the black hole and the white hole because of the different frequencies of it, because of the feeling of January but I know that you've had more of a connection with the white hole, which is really, really interesting, because that's something that might be quite new. It's quite new for me in my awareness. And so, but I know you've had some dalliances with this frequency.
Sure, you'd ask me about, that's perfect. So in general, black hole energy is a sink. Like there's two directions of energy flow, basically. It's either coming in concentric or it's expanding from the center out, right? So that's really white hole, black hole. It's like yin and yang, in and out, expansion, contraction. They're the balanced pair that work together. But black holes in space are, everything falls into, like, they're attractors, light, energy, sound, anything that's around them. They're just like incredibly sinks. So the white hole is the opposite of that. And it's radiant, extending light, extending heat, giving off source, differently than like the way the sun does it. So if you talk about like from galaxies, so if we think of the galaxy that we live in, it's actually hard for scientists to know that much about it because we're in it, so we can't see it. So they examine other, sister galaxies. But for a spiral galaxy, most galaxies, or a lot of galaxies, have a black hole at the center, which is what everything orbits around and spirals around. Some galaxies they have what's called an active galactic nucleus. So an active galactic nucleus means it has a white hole, basically like in the center of the black hole. Like when you look at it for the astrophotography, the center of that galaxy has like a big light column that comes straight up out of it. Have you seen those pictures where it's like, ching?
Yes.
Like the white hole is like a luminous column, is how we conceive of it or look at it or draw it visually, but it's really radial in all directions. It's like ting, beams of light. So, like what pulsars or quasars, blazars, things that astronomers see from a distance. So if an active galactic nucleus, in order for us to know if a distant galaxy is active, like it has to be facing, it's like if you had a flashlight and you were pointing it in the woods way far away, like I wouldn't know you had a flashlight, but if you beam it towards me, then I could see that beam. So like the galaxies that talk to us here on Earth or here in the solar system or here in the Milky Way are the ones that have their beams shining in our direction. Does that make sense? So like sometimes they pulse. So is that even any?
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful.
But it's like, so when we talk about like talking to stars or it's like the codes of galaxies are like how they speak or their language is this like black hole, white hole language, which is almost like the binary language, like on like zeros and ones, on, off. It's like dark light, pulse.
Oh, that's so beautiful. It's really, and so profound as well, because there may be this feeling of fear about black holes, something that's pulling things in, yet you have this white hole right in the center that's creation, that's creating all of that movement to come back into itself in a way and to pour out again. So it's like there's more to explore there, I'm sure, which is going to be really exciting at some point when everybody feels those frequencies more and more. But it's definitely, this is one of the many things that I love about you, especially because you shed light on things that are not necessarily the mainstream. The way that you interpret your universe, your galaxy, you always find something that's not so obvious, maybe, that really draws you in, and then you shed light on that, and it's always really, really interesting and exciting. Yes, and this white hole feeling and frequency is something that's more and more people are becoming aware of that, which is really, really interesting. So I'm sure it's going to expand and grow and become something.
Back to the first part of the conversation.
Yes,
because you asked about it in that we felt this time of quiet hibernation, yes, and then the time to share and talk again. But that if like we were in like more black hole type energies in January, and then when the Lunar New Year kicked in, it's like there was many different sharers and people talking about like white, because it's the year of the rabbit, right?
Yes.
So that whole white rabbit, white energy, white. So I think maybe the post you were referring to, I had here, our January too, we had it like, but it's always both and. We had literally like white days where the ground is covered in snow, the air even felt white, the clouds, it was just like, sometimes you have clouds that are, you can see a little bit, or there's some like division to them, or clumpiness to them. This was just like complete white skies, and everything was coated, like it was the snow type that fell was the clingy kind, so it stayed on everything for a few days, and it was cold, and it was just like we were just blanketed in this white everywhere. And it just had this really profound, white energy in general has a lot of transformative, like purity, truth, clarity, energy to it, and like accountability and.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
But what was I saying about the white hole? That white ray kind of energy. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it unfolds.
Yes, really, really interesting. I think it'll become stronger and stronger within all our fields. We'll start to work with it more and more, and get to understand it a little bit more as we move forward.
So maybe it's good you had asked me when we were planning this conversation if you wanted to talk about the comet, because it's been an interesting. That's another way that it's been playing out for me, that like the comet to me, how I could say this right, it didn't pique my attention that much. Like it was like, okay, a comet, like it was one of the many, many things. But what I observed is how it broadly grabbed human attention around the globe, and whether it's just the media frenzy. I don't know if it's the same, I live in the United States and you live in Singapore. I'm not sure. It'd be cool to compare notes, but people that I went to like high school with that I haven't talked to in a long time were emailing me asking about the comet. My mom was like, what's going on with the comet? Like people that normally don't care at all about like the spewings I have about space stuff or what, they're not like into it. It's just like, it seemed like it was whoever did the PR for this comet did a really good job. But like, what was it like that where you were? Like people were just talking about it, even from all walks of life, and
yes, and it's the images too. It was an image that caught my attention. Just the way the energy was moving through the space, and it looked like this goddess in a white veil moving through space, and this green hue around her. So that's what got my attention to think this is so beautiful. And this magical feel about something that's returning after thousands of years to come and sort of fly around to say hello. I'm here just to remind you of something, you know, and it just felt so like this divine feminine and this white ray frequency just coming in again to illuminate, activate, to assist us to remember something. And when I feel it, I had to laugh the other day because it was just this idea that pinged. When I was a child, I loved one of the biggest films that got me activated was Superman, and seeing the crystals. And he had a green crystal, and I can still hear it, the sound it makes when he pings it in. And then his home, this crystal city, being built for him. And that just, I mean, it was just like, in a way, sort of a prophetic idea of what this is about, you know?
I'm writing that down because I'm going to loop it back. So that Superman's, you know, his fortress of solitude was up by the North Pole, away from humanity. So this is what I'll say for like, so I had this thing going on with the comet of like, everybody's making such a big deal out of it. And like, for some reason, gave me like a little bit, I want to say aversion, but it magnetically pushed me away from the information. I was like, I got to take a space from it so I can really see what's happening, because it on its own wasn't really something that I felt like it was tasked to my soul to pay attention to. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But it became like this whole thing from everywhere. So I was like, all right, let's look into this a little bit. So when I did read about it and tune into it, I know that for my kids, like all fall when I'd be driving them to school and dropping them off, I kept saying Oort cloud. Like the Oort cloud was like in my field. And my kids, you ask them, you know, they're like, why are you saying that, Mom? I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know what it is. But it's just like Oort cloud. I would just make jokes and just say Oort cloud a lot. And it'd be my kids are so lucky. Anyway, so that was a separate thing. But then when I read about the comet, it was basically saying that long period comets like this. So this one they say is like, I think the other thing of why it sparked so much is like, it hasn't been here for 50,000 years, like something about that timeline for people. Yeah. And like they called it the Neanderthal comet, or this hadn't happened. Like it's very much a collective awakening thing. Well, that's what I mean. Like all these people that normally don't pay attention to like space science stuff were really peaked. So when I look at it, in my role as like a celestial navigator, celestial shaman, like I look at where is that thing? Like where is it going to be in the sky when we can see it the best? Right. And that was around February 1st and 2nd. So when it's closest approach to Earth, the place that we could see it, it was right by the celestial North Pole. And I was like, that's the like collectively all these people on the planet that are paying attention to the comet, we're all turning our collective human attention to the celestial North Pole is simply a projection of our Earth North Pole up onto the celestial dome, the celestial sphere. Right. So we have a pole star right now, Polaris. You know, we don't always say so the North Star, but the whole like the celestial abode of the North Pole is what it pinged for me, this comet. And so that goes with your Superman feeling in the green. And so it's like the Aurora Borealis, the North. And I do, you know, some of the grid working, I think a lot of us do, like we're called to watch certain shows or certain lines, or I've been watching this woman on YouTube that lives in Svalbard, the northernmost island. And like a lot of, when my daughter was born, there's a lot of times where I get taken like remote grid work, like North Pole action.
Yeah.
Some of the grid work that I did in the Hudson River Valley I was talking about early January. And then we were working a lot with magnetics, and there was a lot of inner Earth portals. There's a lot of the place where I went to visit has a lot of these chambers or like caves, underground stone chambers. And it felt like entrances to inner Earth for sure. And then some of the magnetic stuff that's happening with a lot of the solar flares is really working during that time we had 3 X flares, and one of them had a magnetic crochet happen during it. So it like shifted the whole Earth magnetic field in Taurus. And a lot of that's run by, if you look at the Taurus field of the planet Earth, it talks, you know, the lines of magnetic flux flow up and out of the North Pole and down and around and back in through the South Pole. Or maybe it's the other way. Yeah, I think it's this way, actually. So the North Pole is like an inward, they say, or then Admiral Byrd came in. Do you know who that is? Like the North Pole explorer who like saw the his tales of like seeing into inner Earth. So there's just a lot of this. January for me was like inner Earth, and like how that linked to the comet was through this whole North Pole as portal, or a baby's born, and the soft spot is the fontanelle. They call in yoga, they call the aperture of God. So that's your North Pole. So that's like where the energies flow in from source.
That's so beautiful.
So the comet had this collective like ping to our North Pole and magnetic north and geographic north. So that goes with your fortress of solitude.
And it's so interesting because many light keepers were speaking about the north and the internal compass and finding your inner north. There was lots of speak about that. So it was really interesting. So,
it's just like the magnetic flux field too. It's like the, where, your compass points due north, and that whole, like when you get a magnetic flux, it's like your inner compass kind of like with some of these solar flares. And then we're like, we have to recalibrate. And then maybe we're recalibrating into new, as our solar system moves into different bandwidths of light in different parts of the galaxy, we're getting all this encodement too. So it's a very, it's exciting times.
It's really exciting times. And move us into warmer climates with your, because I know you've been working a lot, as you do, with Andara crystals, and you've been called to bring certain pairings together, especially over recent times. You've been bringing these beautiful reds and these beautiful yellows together. And so that has a different feel and frequency to the coldness and the feels of what we've been talking about now. But it'd be lovely to speak about that, what those communicators are speaking to you about, and how you felt to bring those together, because it's it's the total opposite.
The truth is that those came together as teams in September and October, and it's just how long it takes me to get them up. So, you're an Andara student, so that's interesting though that they did come through at the same time, because like right now, the Andaras that are activating for me right now are in the green. They're like Aurora Borealis-y, like the greens with the few that I got from you. Some of those like murky or like milky greens.
Yes.
And then they're Lemurian. So there's like a whole, like there's a big, so the current Andaras that are activating under this light and this time for me are very much more what you consider polar and North Pole. And I have some pieces, I don't have them with me, but I have some that are, they have some of the milky white and then some of that green too. Like they almost look like glacier-y things, and they're like, could be like Lemurian sunrise, or they could be, but some of them are like also Aurora Borealis. It's too, well, this from, we want people, as our job is to like help other people connect with Andaras and find them themselves. It would be so great if we never had to put a name or a label on any of them, right? Because they're not just one thing.
No.
They're like millions and billions of things at once, right?
Yeah.
So, anyway, but how come it's interesting that you asked that. How come all the yellow and red ones came out these last few weeks? Yeah, I don't know.
But it's beautiful because also it's this, as you're speaking about the frequencies within them, you're speaking about Solaris and us building our inner light and our own sun, and especially where you live, experiencing winter and coldness, and that need for recognizing, actually, I can build it from inside, and the importance of that.
Yes, all fall, I was very much felt like around here, the squirrels when you can tell there's going to be a strong winter, because the squirrels get extra busy and they, collect extra nuts. I felt like I was like a light coat squirrel all fall. Like I was running around with the Andaras and like out in the sun, I knew like in the flowing waters, and I had this feeling like I was storing light codes for the winter, that I would need them. So that's perfect. That's why they came out, because it does feel like it's been really, we've had a milder winter than usual mostly, but much, much cloudier. Like usually we get like dumps of snow, and then it gets like the beautiful blue on the, we have a lot of sun. We just had like clouds, rain, muck, fog. And that's just a different style of winter. But I feel like that's probably why they came out too, because it was just like, I need these, like, these are the light codes that's one function Andaras can do with us, for us, right? Yeah. It's like they almost like store the solar codes and capacitance and deliver it to us when we need it the most, when we feel the most depleted.
Because here in Singapore, it's basically summer all year round, but we've had rain every day for the past 3 weeks, which is unheard of. They haven't had weather like this for years, about 60 years. I was speaking to somebody who said, I've lived here for 60 years. I've never had this in January ever, because it's like clockwork usually. A few sort of rainy showers in the afternoon, but never sort of for 3 weeks non-stop. So it's really, really interesting. And people are really appreciating the colder climate because it's so tropical. So it's really interesting that the people are really appreciating it, because they know it's going to be all sunny and hot again soon. So just making the most of that change in climate, and something that they're not necessarily used to. So they're welcoming that, which is lovely. I know you have a lot to speak about, a certain partnership in the skies at this time between Venus.
I was going to say what it was, like the ping came from the we were talking about the comet. ZFT, is that the green, whatever. So that I was going to ping to Mars, actually. So when I was watching the trajectory of the comet, so I was looking to see where the comet was in the sky, like what constellation it was in. A, when it was closest to the sun, and then B, when it was most visible, the closest to the Earth was February 1st and 2nd. And that's in between there is when it was in the like North Pole, celestial North Pole zone. Then now it's moving through, and on February 11th, whenever that is, I don't even know, today's the 6th, right? Yeah, in a few days. It's going to sidle up next to Mars. So the comet and Mars had to a meeting, which I'm not sure when you talk about the little things, like, I don't think this is going to make the national news like the other part did, right? So there's a big Mars, and Mars has been very interesting this year. So in August-ish, August 20s, 19th, 20s, something like that, Mars moved into the constellation of Taurus. And then it moved by like early September, it moved next to the Pleiades. So it does that in the ecliptic, the line that all the sun and all the planets and the moon move through the sky on, has annular, repeating once a year patterns, right? It goes through the signs of the zodiac. So Mars moved into the gate between Pleiades and Hyades and Aldebaran, a very potent stargate, celestial stargate in the sky. Mars moved through that in September, and then went up the horns of the bull, move up, up the constellation. And there's actually, so we can bring it back to the white hole, black hole, the Crab Nebula is at the tip of one of the horns of the bull, the Taurus, the bull. And that is one of the active galactic nucleuses that we study a lot here on planet Earth. So that is a white hole. That's, it's a galaxy, but it's a cluster. It's a nebula that has production, like it's a radio broadcaster. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's one of those things that we pay attention to here. So it has that broadcast quality. The Mars went up to there sometime in September, October, and then did a retrograde, turned, like paused, and then has done retrograde motion through Taurus. It hasn't gone all the way back to the Pleiades, but almost. So it's like slid down the horns of the bull. Now it was close again to Aldebaran. So December 8th, 7th and 8th, there was a lunar occultation. You know that, like that word has come through, like where the moon goes across one of the planets. Okay. It's like a little bit of an eclipse, but instead of the moon and the sun, it's the moon and a planet. So that seemed like another one of those things that a lot of people paid attention to, right? It was like the moon went across Mars. And that happened at the same time another celestial event was going on. So anyway, that was December. And so Mars has been slowly now moving back, and it will, on its way back up and kind of close to the Crab Nebula at the tip of the horns of the Taurus, the bull constellation, is when it's going to meet the comet. So I don't have any like predictions about what that, but it's just like another landmark or another point of paying attention.
It is.
And Mars and Venus have been also, but you want to say something?
No, I was just seeing it as, he's collecting these light codes and he's bringing them back and he's sharing them again, and then he's going to be going, that kind of feel to it.
Interesting, like back to the Seven Sisters and then back. It's been like the longest, as I've been like actively sky watching, I haven't seen Mars do this kind of a cha-cha-cha through one constellation. It's like a long time. Taurus is kind of a big chunk of the sky compared to some of the other constellations that are on the zodiac, but it's, since August, I looked it up when Mars leaves, sometimes like March or something like that. But the Mars also is doing this like little dance with the moon. So that, did you hear about the moon Mars overlap, or occultation is the astronomy word for it? It happened December 7th, 8th. Then it happened again January 3rd. It happened again January 30th. There's another one. I had to write them down because there's so many dates. February 28th. So there's a lot of like lunar Mars coding, like when things conjunct, or like, especially when they eclipse and like cross over each other. I consider it a code exchange. So you're asking about some of the Andaras. Just a little bit back to that. Like I have a set. Sometimes they team up for me very much. Like I use Andaras to interface with star codes. So I'll have some of my team, they can be for people that are like looking to gather a team for themselves out there. I have like a rainbow team or like a different colors, but it doesn't mean like, that red one always has to do this, or that orange one always has to do this, right? So I'll grab the red and orange ones when Mars and Mercury, for instance, are balancing. I'll take them out into the field and like either I'll place them in a grid under the stars, or I'll do something at sunrise or sunset with them. And like the Andaras help me almost like, a scientist would use a telescope, like through the looking glass. Is one of the articles I'm writing out. Like, you can use them to, like they absorb the codes for that particular alignment. And then we'll kind of disseminate the information. You can put them on your bedside table or on your altar or on your windowsill. And I find them, and they've been showing me to like activate them under these stellar alignments, and then offer them to other guardians. Like they've showed me over the last few years of like, okay, here's how they're pretty bossy in a good way. Okay, we want you to team them up, and then you have to like, some of them are like, you need to bring us to the ocean, and then we need to do this, we need to do that, and then we're ready to go out. So they've shown me to like kind of prepare them to get them like coded up for grid workers around the planet. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, that's beautiful.
So then like I have a Moon Mars set, because for me, I would like, one of my biggest joys is to use them out in the field for my own crystalline grid keeping and grid work. And then inevitably people will be like, where did you get that? Or how did you? So it's like, it's nice to have, when people ask me that, I'd be like, I have some sets here. You can connect with your own. And, at different sizes and different like entry price points and different things like that for people. Because the Andaras have been very I feel like they're ready to kick into next gear. Like they really want to be with people more and more. Like they're like, get us out there in the hands of the Gridkeepers. Do you feel that too?
Yes. And there's a breaking down within as if it's really expanding within people who are working with Andaras already. Everybody's expanding. It's so beautiful. All these barriers maybe, or structures or beliefs are being broken down to, which is making the community even wider, which is beautiful. So it's a really interesting time. I always get so excited when somebody new discovers Andaras, and they're about, they're sort of asking questions and they're just intrigued and they want to know more, because it's just, for me, it's this sign. They're ready. There's a new frequency. They're beginning to be ready to hold Christed frequencies. Their hearts opening. They're going to start to beam light soon if they follow this through. It's just so exciting because we know what awaits, yet we've got lots to come too. So it's just really beautiful. You were going to speak.
That when you would
you carry on.
Oh no, when you had asked me when we were preparing to have this conversation today, you asked me what do we want to talk about. When I tuned in with the Andaras, they were very much like excited for us to have a conversation about how we support each other. It's cool that it's like the Andara, we could say like Andara stewards are ones who acquire, gather a bunch of them together and then share them with other people, right? Or, you can, in normal human terms, it's a sell Andaras. But that, it doesn't feel that way, right? It feels like we're reuniting soul families. Yes. But it's so lovely. One of the things I appreciate about you so much and our team, our family of people that work with Andaras is this is like that, what do you call it? New commerce or new ways of like supporting each other. Not even just as, small business owners or entrepreneurs. Like there's a lot of that talk of like, women supporting women, but it's much more, I feel this so kinship with you too. It's like we're, if someone comes to me and like I don't have this color or the size or the whatever, I'm like, oh, you have to go look at Lois's page or go look at, like, we're all very collaborative.
Yes.
And we all do such different work with them.
Yes.
And it's like, there's room for everybody to like really, and it's such a beautiful place to be with other Andara stewards that it's like, oh, we're all just like, mostly like cheering each other on and like cross-coding and like, yay, it's so fun.
It's been it's such a beautiful journey, and also they're showing us unity consciousness in so many ways. So it's been beautiful to be part of this, to see you and how you share, and the beautiful, and because it's all about the frequency, and there's no competition, because it's just frequency, and it's you being in your purity and frequency, and so you're bringing through these beautiful alignments. You're going to be called to work in specific ways. We have elemental.
Like I'm just putting these two. Like these two are basically the same color, the same shape, right?
Yes.
But they're going to be. This one's going to call in a different soul than this one is to guardian with, right? It's just because they're so interactive with the people that need to find them. So it's it's like, oh,
so you can
like within the same ray, like you have all your beautiful purples and lavenders, and it's like, but even this one that's cut and faceted this way serves a different function than the one that's, it's like different light codes.
I love it. And the community is just expanding as well. It continues to expand.
No, I was just, right. I know the first time I bought my Andara, there was maybe like 2 stores on Etsy at all. Like that, nobody had heard of them so much in the like old days of like,
Yes.
like our co-mentor and friend, Lisa Brown, was kind of on that front. But in the 2016, 2017, 2018, there wasn't as much, it was like more cloaked.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, it's like everywhere. It's fun, right?
She has illuminated us so much with the knowledge and information with the Andaras. She truly has been a way shower with that level of it, connection and intelligence and light that she can bring through with the Andaras. It's been beautiful. It's been a really beautiful foundation to grow from and within, really, that's to discover my own way of doing it and your way of doing it. And, it's just beautiful. How is the Venus connected? Because I know you had Venus too in there.
You said, so last few years, Mars and Venus did a triple conjunction where they met up in the sky 3 different times. And the last time was in July of 2022. And then, so Venus and Mars, when that was happening, I got a lot of, which kind of goes to the North Pole-ish a little bit. I got a lot of planetary Merkaba energy from those alignments, meaning like, each human has a light body vehicle. But then when we move to the Earth consciousness level, it's like the Earth itself also has a Merkaba, has an energy field, a planetary, because they have, Venus actually is one of the only planet that has a counterclockwise rotation. So it actually spins the opposite way of Mars. So during that time, that's what came through for me with that conjunction. But then they've moved apart. So at the end of November, that's right, the end of November was a Mars-Venus opposition. And there was a lot that came through with Venus. Venus has these cycles, some 8-year cycles, some 5-year cycles, but also Venus goes into conjunction with the sun, or they say descent into the underworld. So there was a period of time where Venus was not in the sky, either at night or in the morning. And when Venus emerged from that dark time and back into the evening star just at sunset, it was directly across the sky from Mars. That's the other thing that happened December 7th and 8th. And Mars was across the sky, so they call that opposition, where they're directly across from each other. And Mars was with the moon, and Venus was with the sun. So this was December 7th and 8th. It just created this like big Stargate opening. And so I'm watching then when I looked at the Venus trajectories, Venus is going between now and July. Venus is conjuncting all the other planets. I don't have all the dates right at the tip of my tongue, but they'll be on my website.
Yeah.
People want to go look at them. But so Venus and Pluto were January 1st. And then Venus and Saturn just conjunct in January 22nd. Venus is moving, and then it's moving through, I think it's Neptune first, maybe then Uranus, and then it's moving through each and conjuncting each planet, all within the first 6 months of this year. So that feels like a lot of coding. And then Mars and Venus don't meet up again until some other time. I think it's September, it's like a distance away. So there's just like, when I see this planetary dance happening where they just come together, cross code, and then move through.
There's just been an explosion in my mind of how immense, how immense this is. And so much that we are not privy to see yet that's occurring too.
So I write things down. It's July 1st.
And how it fits into everything, how we feel it and how it works within us. So looking at the bigger picture of all this and thinking about how Venus going into the underworld and coming back, this love coming into the density.
The Venus coming back out into visible sight right across from Mars felt like very much like the pull of the polarities all the way, which, we see is showing up on the earth in a lot of ways, right? It's not necessarily a comfortable alignment when you pull the slingshot all the way back, and the edge of the, the like elastic is like pulled to its most, so I feel like that's what a lot of us have been sitting through and skulking through in December and January. It's been, and then the Venus with Pluto, like that was a big one too. Like there's lots of recoding that's going on in our interpersonal way when these planetary alignments are coming this year. But Venus going through and like coding every single planet between its opposition from Mars to its return to conjunct Mars. It's like that's an unusual alignment. It doesn't usually happen quite like that. So that's the like
retuning everything to a higher sort of realigning, retuning everything to a higher frequency. It's so immense. It's so immense. I love it. I love the expansions that come from speaking to you and your perspective and how you're able to share that and explain it to us. It's wonderful.
I expect those red, orange, red and yellow Andaras pop back in that you had asked about earlier. And that, I'm not a predictor. I don't like to say what's going to happen, but I feel like there's going to be a lot more solar activity. I think, you don't have to have a big crystal ball to imagine that this year, right? We've had a bunch. It feels like a bunch more is coming this year. And that's happening. Those I've called them Solaris Communicator teams, have come through really to help humans and Gridkeepers and Gatekeepers with when these solar activities are happening, they're really affecting our own, like the human being and the planetary. So they're coming through to assist people with integrating those codes. Because it's really all this source code stuff is, it's nourishment, it's juice, it's ojas, it's prana that we can take in. We just have to learn how to assimilate it. So I think that those Andara teams are really helpful to assimilating the solar energy. And when the sun has its eruptions, because this is what they're tasked to do, the scientists that are on Earth mostly focus on the sun burps that are going to come towards Earth because they might interfere with, our equipment and our stuff, and just like they're guardians of planet Earth, right? But the sun is burping or off-gassing in all directions. So like Venus is also getting blasts of solar energy, and Mars is getting blasts of solar energy. Like we focus mostly on the Earth-facing ones, but it's happening radially in all directions. So all the planets, this cross-coding, are getting this expanded solar activity in this solar cycle. So it's happening. I would be curious to see. But I say, I feel like there's going to be a lot of solar activity when these conjunctions and stuff happen, because that's what I've been watching. That's what it feels like. It's like this extra love from the sun, because the sun, taking on as a star being, like you embody when you awaken to your solar logos or your solar self, right? You can take your seat as a sun. Then the planets are really your children. The planetary bodies are it's like, so if I'm solar mama or solar papa, whatever, solar parent, it's like unified, male and female. Like then all the planets, it's like I have 8 children to watch, right? Or like I'm just kind of watching them play in a field, and they're like, so like this brother and sister, maybe they're, are visiting each other over here, and like this brother and sister over here together, and they like do their thing. But you're really in this like broad field in your solar self. It's like watching the planetary play and dance, kind of like you watch your kids, at the playground.
That's beautiful. That's such a beautiful image. You're such a cosmos of ideas and knowledge and information. It's really lovely. It's so expansive.
It's fun to talk to you. I could talk to you about anything.
Oh, I know. Next time when we come together, we are going to delve into your birthing experiences. So your Sasquatch connections. We haven't spoken about that. I know we've spoken in other places, but that would be lovely if we could speak about that next time, because that's going to be so interesting. And your role in a way, as a mother, birthing these other frequencies too, and to bring this idea of the mother and the divine mother and all these our roles, how they're
Star
expanding.
Mother. I would love to chat with you about that.
That's beautiful.
I love all your share. Every time you share Star Mother things, I'm like out here cheering. Yes, bring it on. The Star Mother. It's time to talk about it.
Oh, that'd be lovely. That feels nice. Oh yes, I'm getting all tingly.
And Orion,
so, yeah,
Orion's really in that.
Yes. So
her as cosmic birth, cosmic womb, cosmic.
Yes.
Thank you for having me today.
Oh no, thank you so much. It's been such a beautiful way to start 2023, because it's been really kind and gentle going in, and this conversation feels really flowy and easy. So I hope everybody gets something and enjoys it as much as I have. Thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you, Lois.
Big love.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching us.